This episode of Gabba Gabba Hunt Talks is brought to you by Hobo Wolfman Records. Hobo Wolfman is the home of the fill-ins, the body bags, and they just released a new 7-inch by the Poison Boys. You never know what's going to show up on their website. They've got all kinds of cool shit on there. Check them out at hobowolfmanrecords.com. You are now listening to the Gabba Gabba Hunt Talks podcast, where we bring you conversations with people connected to the Carolinas underground music scene. With your host, Mike Phillips of Van Huskins. Hey there, and welcome to episode 25 of Gabba Gabba Hunt Talks. Today's guest is Jeff Clayton of ANTiSEEN. Now, I've been wanting to get Jeff for a while, but I did kind of hold off on getting him just because I wanted to build my chops up before I got around to interviewing Jeff. When you hear the story I tell at the beginning of the episode, you'll understand why. Now, I did want to make just a couple of notes about this episode. For one, after about the third song, the audio on my voice gets kind of sketchy. I got a little bit overzealous in trying to scrub the nature sounds out of the back with my noise reduction, and I didn't realize it until I had already done a whole lot of editing, and it was kind of hard to go back at that point without starting all over. Now, I've had some people tell me I shouldn't even mention my audio issues because they wouldn't even notice it, but I know there's a few of you out there that would. It's not bad, but bad enough for me to make a note of it. I also wanted to let you know where you can find their music. Now, most people do know where they can get ANTiSEEN's music, but just in case you don't, if you're looking for digital, you can go to antiseen.bandcamp.com. But if you want physical releases and merchandise, go to antiseen.com. You can get it all there, straight from the man himself. Now, I'm not going to run my mouth too much on this one, because I do run my mouth quite a bit in this one. This may be the episode I talk the most in out of all the episodes I've done so far, besides episode 2 and 3 at least. If you're a fan of Jeff and ANTiSEEN and you've watched any of his interviews or his break-on-throughs that he does on Facebook, you're likely to already have heard one or two of these stories, but that's okay. I actually tried to intentionally talk to Jeff about some stuff that he may not have talked about recently. And while we do talk a good bit about ANTiSEEN, and the talk always goes back to that, we hit on a few other things that most people wouldn't ask him about. Other than Jeff kind of telling a story, there are several conversation moments in this episode, and I really love that part of it. Be sure to listen to the end to hear a hint of what may be to come, both from me and from ANTiSEEN. And I think that's about all I got to say. Let's get to this week's episode.
Testing one. Hey. You registering it all?
Yep.
All
right,
good.
I might turn you down just a little bit. And
all right.
Keep an eye on this. I'm just going to listen to it here for a minute. So what I'll do, I think I had thought about at one point saving this one for like close to Halloween.
Mm-hmm.
But you guys are doing a live stream sometime.
On the 25th.
So I figure I might just go ahead and put it out because you just had your anniversary.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good time to do it, and it's also, I'm just going to unplug that and leave it out now. It sounds good. Be a way to promote that as well. It'll give me an episode this week, too. So I'll get it all edited together early so you can listen to it in case you want to listen to it and go, man, you might want to cut that out. I'm not, I'm going to be real. I'm not going to leave anything in that would be questionable anyway. But sometimes people hear it back and go, oh, man, that was stupid what I said. I'm like, I thought it was pretty funny, but, So if there is anything, I've gotten to where I try to get them out a little bit early so people can listen to them. So far, I haven't had that be an issue.
Yeah, I've done enough of these where I kind of know what not to talk about.
and it's just whatever gets said, and then I use my best judgment on it. A lot of times, I've heard that somebody got a little bit upset about something that was said on my podcast, and I've just tried to figure out for the life of me, I've never said anything about him on the podcast, and unless somebody said something about him and it was like coded or just they didn't mention his name at least, because I wouldn't let that shit out there. I don't want my podcast to cause problems. So I'm going to do the introduction. I'm talking to Jeff Clayton today. And Jeff, I've been a fan of you guys for a long time. And I've told this story in the zine, and I believe you read it. Mm-hmm. But I kind of wanted to tell it on the podcast real quick. Okay. But when I was like 16, 17, I started coming to Charlotte to go record shopping. I was always going to the mall before then because that's just where I could get to when I was a kid, living in Kings Mountain, Gastonia or Shelby. Mm-hmm. But discovered Charlotte and the record store and the comic book store. It's like, ooh, we got to go there.
All on the same street, right?
Yep, exactly. Well, Milestone Records was there, and then right around the corner was Heroes, and then right down the road was Repo. It was perfect. On one of our first trips down there, we started noticing all these flyers for a band called ANTiSEEN. And we were, pretty new into punk rock. We discovered all the big bands by then, Misfits, Sex Pistols, Ramones, everybody. But we didn't really know about the local scene. We'd started to see about it in Creative Loafing and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. We saw these flyers for ANTiSEEN, and a couple of trips down there, we kept seeing this and seeing people with shirts. And so we decided we were going to buy this cassette right here. Is
that the very
Destructo
one?
Years. Yep, that's the one right there. And so me and Matt both bought that day and went up to the counter, and Jimmy's like, "Oh, ANTiSEEN fans." We're like, "Yeah, we've heard a lot about them, but we've never heard them before. This will be our first time listening." He's like, "Oh, in that case," and Joe was working in the store that day. And he called Joe over. He's like, "Joe, we got some new ANTiSEEN fans over here. Come sign this cassette for them." And then I don't remember if you were already in there shopping or if you happened to walk in the door right then. Mm-hmm. But then it was like Joe turned around and was like, "Oh, there's Jeff. Jeff, come over here and sign this." And you guys were so cool to us that day. I think you guys were getting ready to play, and we came out and saw you. I don't remember which show it was. We ended up coming to see you guys, but it was just you guys were so cool to us that day, and you didn't have to be. And, you guys looked rough and tough, but you were like just as nice as you could be about everything, just so generous. And that left an impression with me. We had started playing in a punk band, and that was just like, man, if these guys can do it, we can do it too. So you were very integral to my journey, and I just want to kind of put that out there. And yeah, that's the cassette right there. One of my treasures that I will never part with.
That's great, man.
So how did you get into music when you were a kid? What was some of the earliest stuff you listened to, and how big of a part did music play in your life? I imagine pretty big because of the stuff that you like.
Well, as a kid, our family moved around a lot because my dad was in the Air Force. Mm-hmm. It was a whole lot of always being the new kid and taking a while to get your footing and to make friends and stuff. And then as soon as you did, well, we're moving again. That kind of thing. So I listened to a lot of records. And of course, when I was younger, like real young, it was all, little kiddie records and stuff. But I really took an interest in the ones that had more of a song and a beat to it. Like, for instance, maybe one of the songs from the Jungle Book, the Bare Necessities, and stuff like that. And I raided my mom's 45 holder and got some original RCA Elvis records, some Fats Domino, and one record in particular that I liked being that young was by the Chordettes, Lollipop.
Okay, yeah.
This is 1957, I think. Mm-hmm. I still got that very single of hers. Yeah. And it's got a burgundy and silver label. And so, that was my first dip into it. But then I would hear songs on the radio. We were always listening to the radio in our house. Oh, yeah. And I would know the songs I liked, but I didn't know who they were. Mm-hmm. And I remember Dad brought me home one of these things, a compilation record. It was called Summer 71. But it wasn't played by the original artist. It was covers.
Yeah. I've seen those records.
But I was listening to it, and I'm going, there's something different. But I can't figure out what it is. And maybe it just sounds different on the radio, Then I started getting a little bit more inquisitive and asking people, who is this, and all this. And I found out pretty early on I liked Alice Cooper. Around that time, he had a lot of songs on the radio.
Yeah.
So I liked Alice. I liked Grand Funk Railroad. I like Black Oak, Arkansas, Rick Derringer. And I think the first album I ever got that was truly mine. And again, Dad did this because Dad was in the Air Force and he worked on bass and he would go to the PX and get stuff dirt cheap, bring it home. And he brought me, and I liked Joy to the World by Three Dog Night.
Yep.
But instead of the single, he just bought the whole album. Listened to the whole thing. I got to where I loved every bit of it. The next album I got was $1 Billion Babies.
Yeah.
By Alice Cooper. I know every nuance of that record.
Yeah.
Third album after that was Grand Funk, Shining On. And from there on, man, it was just like the floodgates were open. I always tended to gravitate toward older. I guess they were kids then, but to me they looked like adults. Yeah. But I would gravitate toward them because I could ask them questions and they knew what I was talking about. And they always thought I was that cool little kid that liked Grand Funk. And and so that's the early parts, and then being a teenager and getting older, then you find out about all the rock music television shows like Don Kirshner, the Midnight Special, In Concert. And, through that, I discovered a ton of stuff that I loved, and it wasn't all just like the hard rock or the weird stuff, I watched that, learned how to appreciate Curtis Mayfield, Seals and Crofts, Rita Coolidge. I didn't have anyone in my ear going, that's not cool. Yeah. Because it was basically just me. And so I just liked what I liked. That's the way I've been all my life. Even when stuff was, when you got into a certain kind of music and you had to go a certain lockstep.
Yeah.
I never did that. I think for the brief moment I discovered punk, I turned my back on everything. But it didn't last long. Because I thought going, man, I really like that stuff.
Yeah.
I'm not going to act like I don't. Matter of fact, the first logo ANTiSEEN ever had, we were going to have a name. It was going to be something like ANTiSEEN's Death Train Railroad.
Yeah.
And it was the Grand Funk finger sticker. But we decided that was a little bit too much. But we did have Death Train all the way at the beginning.
Yeah.
And of course, it didn't become a song until almost a decade later. Watching those shows, talking to people, going to, hanging out at people's houses. And it really was going over, hey, man, I got a bunch of records. Oh, man, can I come over and see what it was that type of thing. Moving a lot, you got to discover a lot of different stuff in the different regions of the country that you would live in. And all depending on where they were from, And then, like 1,000 other bands, man, when we heard the Ramones.
Yeah.
It was a done deal then, man. I mean, like, we tried to start a band. We were listening to Ted Nugent and Aerosmith and Kiss. We're just sitting there with these guitars. How do you play like Ted Nugent?
That was me when I first started trying to play guitar. It was like, I wanted to be able to play like Eddie Van Halen or whoever I was listening to at that time, and it wasn't happening. So I put the guitar down for a little bit till I discovered punk rock and realized, oh, I can do this.
Because we were taking a stab at Cat Scratch Fever, but it was just the riff. Dun, 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 dun,
We did that in our punk band too. So,
but any of the fillers, just weren't in our song. But
so it was that band you tried to put together before ANTiSEEN. Was there a name for that band? Did you?
The very, very first band I ever had, we called ourselves Blue Spirit.
Okay.
We envisioned all of our equipment being blue.
That would have been awesome.
And
you're like ZZ Top with their matching instruments.
Yeah. Or at the time, we were probably on that mindset of Angel.
Yeah.
And all their stuff being white.
Yeah.
We're just like, man, what if ours was blue? Then we were just kind of just throwing riffs together, not really doing a whole lot. Then we actually tried songs. Like I said, once we discovered the Ramones, and shortly after the Sex Pistols and the Clash.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that kind of split the band down the middle. Who's going this way and who's going to stay there? Two of them stayed there and three of us went this way.
Yeah.
So we got a drummer that was also on that same wavelength. And this is in a small town in North Carolina. This is in Albemarle. And I actually lived in New London, which is even smaller town outside the small town of Albemarle. So there were people there with that were into this new thing that was going on. The good thing about it is by the time we got into it, it wasn't already passé. It wasn't like a thing in the past. It was something we could see developing then. Mm. And that's only because of our age, kind of right place, right time.
Yeah.
I never condemn people for not having been around. I know people like to do that. I don't like to do that because you turn people off.
Exactly.
When the stuff comes out, it's for everybody forever.
And I don't care how you get into it or what band gets you into it. Wherever you got started, that's cool. So if it was Green Day that turned you on to punk rock, that's fine. I got no problem with that.
That's where you got to start, man. Yeah. And I think I try to explain this to other people I know from time to time, and they don't quite get a grasp of it. But, man, I try to tell them, I said, look, man, and I'm going to use Green Day as an example. some kid that discovers one of the Green Day albums, it's the first thing he's heard like that, besides, stuff that's influenced by hip hop or auto-tune country. And he hears that, man, that has the exact same awakening effect on that kid that Getting Kiss Alive had on me.
Yeah.
And people are just like, no, it's not. No, it is the same. It's all on how and when you discover it. Like, I'm one of those guys, I don't watch wrestling now.
Yeah.
I love wrestling, but I don't watch it now.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't have the same appeal to me.
Same here. I loved it as a kid. I loved it again, like in the 90s, it got pretty good again. And then just what they're doing today just doesn't do it for me.
Yeah. And the thing about it is, I don't expect them to change to cater to me.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going around buying their Slurpee cups for $18.99 or, I'm not their demographic anymore.
Yeah.
So I don't expect it to bend to me, but I do realize that there's some kid that has his favorite wrestler and he sees a match and, man, he's going to remember that until he's an old man.
Yep.
Oh, I saw the blah, 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 but he's going to be talking about guys now.
Yeah.
And it just happens that way, and you can't stop it. And you can't make people get the same, I'm going to sound all hippy-dippy now, but that same magical feeling.
Yeah.
Like, the thing that maybe it first turned me on with that just like, I was just like, this is it, man. I got to get all of this I can. Might not be the same to you.
Yeah.
You may have seen the exact same thing. It didn't have that impact. Yeah, we can go round and round with this.
Yeah, and I was going to say, as far as that's concerned, my stories are kind of a lot like yours. I listened to like Alvin and the Chipmunks and stuff when I was a kid. I just love music. But then my cousin turned me on to Kiss and gave me a copy of Double Platinum because he didn't want it anymore. He didn't like them. I don't know how he ended up with it, but he didn't like them. So he gave it to me, and that was it for me. I was like, oh, this is great. But really, it wasn't until Alice Cooper, my dad went to go see him in concert sometime in the early 80s. And I was like, who are you going to go see? I got super interested in this. He's like, well, I've got the records here. And I'd already kind of dug into his collection a little bit. But up until that point, I wasn't quite old enough to play the records on my own. And then I got free reign of his records. And I put on $1 Billion Babies. And then I put on Killers. And that was really what cemented the deal for me. And I was like, yeah, okay. So there was Kiss. I love Kiss. But also I was getting in all kinds of pop stuff at that time as a kid. And some hip hop and stuff. And then, or rap, what we called it at the time. And, then Alice Cooper was like, yeah, rock and roll. I want to be this is rock and roll is what I want. So very similar to what but the whole time, like I've listened to all kinds of bands growing up. I mean, even today I listen to my musical taste is real varied. And we'll talk about one of those bands in a little bit. But it's, so I respect that about you. I think it's really cool that our stories they're not going to be similar all the way through, but that our origins are pretty similar.
Well, I mean, think about it. We basically grew up in the same region.
10 years apart, but...
10 years apart, but I mean, things didn't change much in that 10.
Yeah.
Things changed pretty rapidly now in, a year or two, but back then, the progress is still kind of chugging along. So I imagine your experience was pretty much exactly like mine.
Yeah, and even down to I grew up in Kings Mountain, a small town outside of a small town outside of Gastonia. And me and a handful of friends found it. We tried to start our first everything. It was just kind of... the stories mirror each other quite a bit. I know we could talk about that like all day long. Was there anything else you wanted to add to that, or that you didn't get around to saying that you thought you might want to say?
Something I thought was funny during that age of discovery is the things that you kind of insisted upon, but you were wrong.
Yeah.
Like, I loved that song Rock and Roll Hoochie Coo so much. Well, it's got to be Alice Cooper.
Yeah.
So they never
I've
told
heard
the
you
name.
tell the story before, yeah.
They never told the name on the radio.
Yeah.
And I was just like, damn, that rocks like hell. It's got to be Alice.
Yeah.
Until Midnight Special comes on one night, and I see Edgar Winter and Rick Derringer in his band, and they play Rock and Roll Hoochie Coo, and I'm just like, okay, I guess it's not Alice then. And I used to see pictures of Ian Hunter. And who I thought Ian Hunter was? I mean, I could have read the fine print, but I was a kid, man. It turned on by the boom, the big sonic boom you got from the pictures, the guitars, the hair slinging all over the place. I thought Ian Hunter was Led Zeppelin.
Yeah.
Not Robert Plant. I knew Robert Plant was a guy, but I thought Ian Hunter, that's Led.
Yeah.
I found out later, well, he's not Led Zeppelin, he's Mott the Hoople, and he's not even Mott.
So was ANTiSEEN your first real band, or did you have anything else between that?
Well, there was Blue Spirit.
Or Blue Spirit, I'm sorry. I said Blue Mist.
That's
the water at the milestone.
Right. Yeah. That was a basement living room band. We never ventured out of those two spots. Then we had Kamikaze. That's what we became when we discovered punk. We were Kamikaze. We got that because of the red sun and the Japanese letters. Mm-hmm. We kind of got from the Clash's imagery. You know, they were doing that kind of military thing around giving them enough rope going into London Calling. We were real influenced by that. But at the same time, we were doing Kamikaze. We were doing stuff that was, you know, basically a derivative of 77 through 79 punk. Yeah. But around this time, I'd already discovered Black Flag and the Circle Jerks and Fear and Germs. And so that shorter, faster, louder type thing was kind of getting a hold of me. So I kind of formed a side band over there called The Wreck. I mean, Kamikaze only played one time, and that was at a Norwood JC's talent show. Okay. We were treated real bad. It was an early experience about the music business, I'll tell you that. Yeah. It kind of set in stone the way things would be for the rest of the time. Yeah. Most people that I knew at the time, if that experience had happened to them, they'd have been like, to hell with this, man. Yeah. I'm not doing this.
I think I know some people that got turned off pretty early because of just a bad experience.
It made me more determined. Yeah. I've never really been turned off by bad experiences like that. I always try to figure out, well, okay, how could I have handled that different? And how could I make sure that didn't happen to me? Yeah. Over the years, man, we were the band that you didn't dare rip off. Yeah. So after Kamikaze and The Wreck only played live 2 times. And it was all there in Albemarle, you know. So I got pictures. I don't have any recordings of those shows. It would have been awesome to have those. Yeah. Actually, I think that Kamikaze show is on tape somewhere. I'd love to come across it. Yeah. I'll put that out, you know. But after that, I moved to Charlotte. Had a hardcore band for a minute called Fight for Life. Biggest thing we did was we opened for Minor Threat.
Oh wow! Yeah. At the milestone.
Yeah. And man, if I'm not mistaken, that was the only show we did. Things just seem to happen. Like now, you say, well, you know, that was 2 years ago, and you know, a lot can not happen in 2 years. Yeah. Real life kind of takes over. But back then, man, it seemed like you get a lot done. Like in a year. Like if you say, well, that was a year ago, that seemed like so long ago. But my wheels started turning about ANTiSEEN very quickly.
Had you already met Joe at this point? Or?
No. When I met Joe, that's when let me take that back. Okay. I had a guy that had been hanging around that was from Fayetteville named Don Moats. And me and him kind of had the nucleus of ANTiSEEN going. But man, one day he just disappeared. Yeah. Like I never heard from him again. Turns out he went over to Grenada.
Oh, wow.
And, eventually he got back in touch years later, and I guess he was a little put off that the band kept going. But I'm like, what was I supposed to do? I never heard from you. Yeah. Not a postcard, nothing, you know. Oh, by the way, I'm halfway around the world. So I kept going. And that's another thing, you know. It's just like, before my project even gets started, it gets cut off at the knees. And what do? Do you just go, forget it? Yeah. No, I never did that. I never said just forget it. Yeah. That's never been in my DNA, I guess. I don't like problems just like anybody don't, but when they come up, you know, I'm not ready to wave the white flag because of the problem.
It's like a challenge. Like, okay, well, this is something to avoid next time or something to fix.
And man, for the longest time, our stock answer, you know, like people go, so you guys have been together 5 years. What makes you keep going? You know, because of all the people that hate us. And if we packed it in now, they'd get some kind of satisfaction out of it. So we keep going. Same answer. So you've been together 10 years now. Now, so you've been together 37 years now. Since ANTiSEEN. I've done a few side things.
Yeah, I'd written that down, like Judas Bullethead, Jeff Leppard.
Yeah, Jeff Leppard, Judas Bullethead.
Jeff Clayton, the Mongrels.
The Mongrels, 13 Dead Things.
Yep, I remember that band. Are there any recordings of 13 Dead Things?
Man, there used to be a damn good video of the best show we did is that band at Heretics.
Yeah, that might be where these pictures are from, actually. I'll pull them out. Go ahead and pull those out. You can have all these pictures if you want them.
Really?
Yeah, I've got doubles of all of them.
Oh, okay, so. Man, that's great. Thank you.
Even these blurry pictures of the Cheapo show, which because I wanted to talk about Repo and Repo Cheapo. I don't think I even wrote that down, but that was one of those things I was going to.
This is not the 13 Dead Things show I'm referring to.
Yeah.
But this was the night that we played.
I think that was a show that Popes on Dope played as well.
Did you?
Yeah.
Yeah, the flyer.
Yeah.
Yeah, the werewolf.
Yeah, I think
carrying the girl.
I think that was the ANTiSEEN show, but I think I might be wrong about that. I'd have to go back.
The ANTiSEEN show. It was the Furies, Popes on Dope.
It was like the Halloween show, and I think it was a GG Tombstone benefit show.
Yeah, that's when
we played like 2 songs, and our guitarist broke a string and couldn't get his guitar back in tune after that. And we just got off the stage. It's like, oh man, we got to play with ANTiSEEN for like a song and a half.
And then like all the pool cues were getting broken. And
yeah.
Chairs. Yeah, it was a wild night. I remember the guy that owned Heretics. His name was Kevin.
Yep.
His bouncers and stuff said, "Well, what do you want us to do?" You know, he said, "Just let it go." He said, "Just let it burn out." It's like, God almighty.
And I may be wrong about Popes on Dope playing on that show. I just remember
I
being
think
at
you were.
Yeah.
I think you did. It's on the flyer.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you letting me have these. Here's my drunk brother.
So we kind of got sidetracked there, but we were talking about 13 Dead Things. And
13 Dead Things?
Yeah.
13 Dead Things was me and my brother.
Yeah.
Charles Inman. He wasn't in another band. Dave Rames, who was in...
That's right, yeah.
In Dragonflowers.
Yeah.
And Scott Mosley, who was not in any other band. And
so I guess in those pictures, you must have just been like singing while...
I was singing with the Furies.
Are playing.
Doing something with the Furies, I think.
Yeah. I couldn't remember. It was so long ago, and I think my friend Matt mentioned 13 Dead Things a while back. I was like, oh shit, I forgot about that.
It didn't last very long, but man, we had enough stuff. We actually were thinking about recording and putting out a EP, 7-inch, but we never made it that far. Would have been good to have. I mean, it was a fun thing to do.
So how did you meet Joe? And I guess that was the beginning of like what ANTiSEEN became.
Before I moved to Charlotte, I started in '81. First time I ever went to the Milestone, 1981.
Yeah.
And saw Black Flag.
Okay.
Damage tour.
Yeah.
I don't know what idea I had a punk rock club looked like, but the Milestone was not it.
Yeah.
I mean, we must have passed the place 10 times.
Yeah. We went the first time we went, we actually went a week ahead just to kind of scope out the place and see what it was like. Because we were young. We were like, can we even go to this place? Because they had the Sunday night matinee shows that were all ages. I think we were 17. It was like, so we went to check it out. Okay, this is where it's at. What is this place? This is kind of a dump. But we'd practiced in like an old rundown house at one point and threw a show there. And when we went inside, it reminded me of that. And I was like, okay, this is home.
Yep. And, man, I ain't going to lie to you. We were scared to death.
Yeah.
It was just me and one other guy from Albemarle, We were just like, oh, fuck. The strobe lights on the top of the thing.
Yeah, I've heard about that.
And then getting in that doorway, paying Bill Flowers there at the window. Yeah. But man, once it started happening, man, we were just like, okay, this is something I could get used to, Yeah. And boy, when they played, it was like, God Almighty. That lineup, that 5-piece lineup, right after Damage was, I guess they played on Damage. I guess that 5-piece lineup did Damage, right? Yeah. Right. Yeah. God, it was awesome.
Yeah, I'd love to have seen that. Closest I got was seeing Flag a few years ago, and that was a badass show. Yeah. Hey, you were there.
That was good. Yeah. That was really good. But I was looking at it through eyes that saw it from then, and it was still real good.
Yeah.
So, and after that, then I moved to Charlotte, where I was going to CPCC in commercial art, advertising design. Mom said she would subsidize the whole thing as long as I was going. Man, it took about a year, and I got the rock and roll bug.
Yeah.
That's when she's just like, okay, I'm done.
Yeah.
You got to do it on your own. So, okay, I know I gotta get a job. And I had all kind of jobs. God almighty. I worked at 7-Eleven. I worked at a place called Consolidated Alloys. It's a place that bought scrap aluminum.
Okay.
Well, I was in charge of aluminum. They bought everything. I never seen so many rats in my life. God damn. My most infamous job that I had was the Joy Adult Bookstore that used to be on Independence Boulevard.
Yeah.
And I eventually moved in there and lived there. Crazy, man. I was thinking about shit I did now, and I'm just like, what the hell?
I can't remember who it was. A while back, I said something about interviewing you. They're like, you need to ask him to tell stories from the bookstore, the adult bookstore. We might do that. We might save that for like a second episode.
Okay. Yeah, we could do a whole episode.
Because I was thinking that might be take up all the time we have to talk.
God, it was nuts. It was insane. It was really insane. Yeah. And I was just like, God damn. But I'm glad I did it now. But would I do it again? No fucking way. That was, around that time, 86. You see, man, we really didn't have anybody to pull us aside and say, here's what you go, here's what you do next. Mm-hmm. I had no idea.
Yeah.
And we finally met that person that did that.
Yeah.
And that was Scott Savage.
Okay.
From the band The Streets. Mm-hmm. And we would go see them. Eventually, Scott, was letting me tag along. And I was humping equipment.
Yeah.
Eventually, Scott would get so out of control and piss so many people off at him that he kind of wanted me to be his bodyguard. Scott had put out records. And so that was the next logical step for us.
Yeah.
He had his hands in that all the way until it came out, So we finally had someone to give us some kind of direction.
Yeah.
But I think you asked beginning how I met Joe. We were, of course, I moved to Charlotte. We go to the Milestone every weekend. Mm-hmm. We didn't care who was playing.
Yeah.
The thing was, see you at the Milestone Friday and Saturday. Saw a ton of bands. I didn't know who they were until I walked in. And some of them were great. Yeah. Some of them were fucking terrible.
Yeah.
But it was just where everybody met. And I guess from there you decided how the rest of the weekend was going to go. One night I went and there was a group from New York. And I think at this point I was still living at home. I don't think I had moved to Charlotte yet. But we went to see this band called the Stimulators.
Okay.
And for anyone that don't know who that is, Harley Flanagan was their drummer when he was only like 13 years old.
Oh, wow.
But by the time they toured the country, he wasn't in that band anymore. There's another guy playing drums. But we went and saw them, and this was also a time when it seemed like a band wouldn't care that there was only 30 people there.
Yeah.
Because we had a damn good time.
Mm-hmm.
The band had fun. We had fun. This was before the time of walking in and putting your hands in your pocket and staring at them.
Yeah.
We were there to have a good time. Yeah. And goddamn, we were going to no matter what. Mm-hmm. And it was that way with every band. Somewhere along the line, the dimmer switch got turned down on that whole go ape shit crazy every time you go somewhere.
Yeah. You can only do that for so long.
Yeah. I mean, when I was young, I was like, man, if the way you can tell you had a good time as a show is if you can't walk the next day. But yeah, once we got direction, as I say, the death train's been going ever since.
Yeah.
How many days been up for dead? I don't have my out of my head. Yeah, how many days don't change my ways? Just don't sleep at all this week. But I've been up all night, up all night, up all night, up all night.
And you mentioned a little while ago, you went to school for art. And that was one of the things that, when I was talking to John, he suggested I ask you about. It's like all the artwork that you've done. Because you've done a lot of stuff for ANTiSEEN, for Seducer, for Jimmy, for a lot of different bands and a lot of different people.
Yeah,
and it's really cool stuff too. The street clones, it's all I love. I've always loved your artwork.
Well, I appreciate that, man. I don't do nowhere near as much of it as I wish I could. time was my best time to do artwork for me was late at night. Mm-hmm. But when you get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, you go to work. There is no late at night anymore.
Happen,
So it takes me a while to even get something together. I'm supposed to be doing something for Queen City Rejects and the Fill-Ins, a split that they're doing.
Yeah.
And I have drugged my feet now man, they may have already put the damn thing out and it already sold out going into a second pressing for all I know.
I don't think so, but actually, I know it's not out yet, but I do know that they were talking about it.
Yeah, well, I committed to doing it, and here we are. But that was also before, the world got turned upside down.
Yeah, that put a halt on a lot of things. And,
that really put I didn't realize it at the time. I wouldn't have, if you'd asked me then, I wouldn't have said yeah, but in hindsight, it messed with my creativity. Mm-hmm. It really made me just kind of want to, I wasn't hiding under a rock or nothing, but I just didn't want to do nothing.
That's the hardest part I have is so I started this in December of last year and just had gotten it going good when everything happened. And it's especially I'm doing a zine part of it as well. Right. I'm having the hardest time getting the second issue out because I'm just not motivated to do it because there's no shows to go to hand them out at, even take them to the record store. How many people are really going shopping these days? I know that Jimmy's still doing okay. People are buying records, but it's hard for me to get motivated to do that part of it. Now, this part of it is actually kind of picked up because of the fact that I can do things online. So that really didn't slow down too much. As a matter of fact, I started doing a little bit more of it. But even still, sometimes it's just hard for me to get in the mind frame of sitting down and editing it. I need breaks every now and then. And that's been the worst part about all this. I kind of don't mind the slowdown so much. I feel like everybody could take a little bit of time to slow down, but I'm ready to get back at it. Mm-hmm. I'm just, when everybody else is ready, I guess. Yeah. And I don't know. I don't want to rush into it. I don't want to be the one out there going, come see my show.
Yeah.
And having people go, I don't know if we should be going out right now. It's a weird time and a weird, tightrope to walk or whatever.
That's how come we did those, you were the one Facebook broadcast show. Because, I was just I was watching people doing it and I was like, oh, this is a good idea, I think. And I'm watching them. I didn't like the aspect of them inviting you into their practice place and then just watching them practice. Mm-hmm. Just being real funny about it. And I was like, man, if we're going to do it, I said, I want it to be they paid to come see the show.
Yeah.
And I said, if we fuck up, no stopping. We're not going to go back and do it again. We're not going to acknowledge it. We're just going to keep plowing through.
Like you're playing a show.
Song one to last song. Just blaze through. And after giving that speech, turns out I was the one that fucked up more than anybody. But, we got one coming up on the 25th of October. And
is that one going to be on Facebook as well, or are you doing it?
Yeah, it's going to be on Facebook. Unless there's some kind of weird thing they got going on.
I think from what I've heard that live performances are still okay. They just don't want people I was doing the little radio thing for a while where I just get on and I'd play music on Saturday nights. Mm-hmm. I don't think they want people doing that.
Right.
Because that's basically, they're facilitating a pirate radio station.
Right. Basically, that's what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I told the guys that. I said, I think they're talking about when you play, because I don't know if you know this or not, but I don't think it would work on that cassette right there.
Yeah.
But if you took a CD, especially, or if you were streaming it off of Spotify, since that's all digital information, there's a code in that.
Well, there's that. There's also sometimes stuff from cassettes will because I digitized a bunch of stuff from cassette and played it. But basically, that program Shazam you can get on your phone or SoundHound. They basically listen to a song and identify beat patterns and stuff and tell you what song you're listening to. It's the same technology they've got. So I could play something that was 30 years old, but if it's been distributed through Spotify or something like that, no matter what source I took it from, I would get a warning sometimes. But it'd take them a while to catch up to it. And a lot of times, my replays would be they'd be muted all the way through it. A bunch of different songs would be muted because it was bands that their filter picked up. And a lot of it was still stuff like Van Huskins. Mm-hmm. It would do it for Van Huskins because we distributed through Spotify. Now, I own the rights to that music. I'm in that band, but Facebook was still telling me you can't play that. So it's I get the reason for it. And, it's good for bands that make money off their music. But the bands I was playing was all local bands. It's mostly older stuff. And, bands that are my friends and stuff. And they'd be listening, but Facebook would say, you can't play their stuff. And I get it. I completely understand.
Mm-hmm. I don't care.
But,
people do it to us, but I don't know. we were concerned that we'd be in, 2 songs deep into the show and then they'd block it.
Yeah.
Because like when I got my cases I just showed you, with all my action figures and my Japanese stuff in, when I got those set up, I was kind of doing a video showing it, and I had Prince playing in the background.
Yeah.
Wasn't even thinking about it. It wasn't intentional. It was just playing. It was, and I'm filming it, and all of a sudden it said, "This video has been interrupted." And I'm just like, "What the hell?" I said, "It's got to be that music."
Yeah.
So I did it again without it, and everything was fine.
Yeah, that's what it is. But when you're playing live, it's not going to be a carbon copy of what the
and it won't have that.
I forget what they call that code.
Yeah, whatever. I'm using that for lack of a better word. I don't know what it is, but that coding. Yeah, it won't be there.
Yeah. So that was, you said that was October 25th.
Yeah, it's Sunday, 8:00.
So your 37th anniversary was just a couple of days ago, right? As far as like the anniversary of your first show?
What was the first? Tuesday? Wednesday?
Thursday. It was Thursday.
Thursday was the first?
Yeah, today's the 3rd.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. All right. Yep. Thursday was 37 years since we played our first show.
You played in Boone?
In Boone, North Carolina, at a place called The Barn, and it was an actual barn.
Okay.
Converted into a club, eventually converted into a home.
Was it like in like the town of Boone, or was that kind of out in the country?
Man, I can
trying to think because I used to spend a lot of time in Boone. I'm just trying to picture if I knew about where it was.
When you go through the main road when you're going from anywhere to go into Boone, you know where that Wendy's was?
The double-decker Wendy's?
Yes.
Yeah.
You turn left there.
Yeah.
Before you get to the college.
Okay, yeah.
You go there. There was a road that went up the mountain, and that's where it was at the time. I've been there half a dozen times trying to find it, and I couldn't find it.
Yeah.
But a guy that lives around there sent me a picture of it and says, "Man, there it is. There's the roof. Like it's dilapidated."
Yeah.
Where before there might have been like 7 houses on that whole mountain, that whole part of the mountain. Now there's about 70.
Oh yeah. I haven't been up there in a while. I've drove through there 6 or 7 years ago, but it changed so much then. I've heard it's changed even more now.
I love that area. Don't care much for the college or nothing, but I love that whole area of the country.
Yeah. I had some buddies that went to school up there, so I spent a lot of time up there back in the early 90s.
Did you ever go to the Klondike?
Yeah. Went there quite a bit. Saw Flat Duo Jets there.
We played there a lot.
Where I saw Boyle at one time. That was a pretty cool place.
Yeah, I liked it. See, in Boone, we played the barn, and then years later, we played the Klondike. One time, we played in this theater, a movie theater. They were actually playing a movie that had Jeff Bridges in it as a country singer. And then we played after the movie.
Yeah.
And that was fun, but that was the only time we ever played there. It was shut down. And we played Black Cat Burrito.
Yeah. And we could talk about ANTiSEEN all day, keep going with that. But like I said,
let's talk about other stuff.
I was going to say, like I said, when we were walking in here before I got set up, you talk about that all the time.
Yeah.
There's plenty of interviews out there.
Fucking tired, all you do is cry, cry, bitch and moan by the way things are. Peace and protest, falling on my phone. Go march and rush these stupid fucking hallways. Sing and scream, let everybody a dream. But no protest song is gonna stop a bomb. Hippie punk, don't come back to me. Tell me your job, what is it I gotta say to you? Fuck you! Yeah! 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 Some real problems at the hip closed door. Chopping more hypocrite, join the peace corps. Excuses no by, and I lost on fire. You don't know shit, my eyes are eyes up. Hey bitch, give me your head. Lay back and listen to the Grateful Dead. What a boy. Hippie punk, don't come to me. Tell me your joke. What is it I gotta say to you? Fuck you! Yeah! 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 Have a peace rally, what's it gonna prove? Get out of line, cause niggas shit out of you. And knock the savage right off your feet. Then your head will be bleeding on the concrete. Get out, drive, right off and don't smile. All your skateboards will be burning on fire. One big pile. Hippie punk, don't come come up to me, give me a job. Only thing I got say to you is, yeah. Hippy punk, don't come up to me, give me a job. Only thing I got say to you is, fuck yeah.
One of the things I wanted to talk about is Daryl Hall and John Oates.
Yep.
So you're one of the few people in the punk rock scene, I'll say, that's as open about liking them as I am.
Mm-hmm.
That was like the first concert I saw when I was a kid. Mm-hmm. I saw them at the Coliseum in Charlotte on the Big Bam Boom tour.
Right.
My brother won tickets. Me and my family came to Charlotte one time for something. I don't remember what, just randomly. We didn't come out often, but we stopped at the was it Record Bar on Independence, or was that Camelot?
The one on Independence?
Yeah.
It started out as Grapevine and then became Camelot.
Camelot. It was Camelot. I couldn't remember if it was Camelot or Record Bar when I went.
I know where you'd think it was Record Bar. It's same setup.
Yeah, basically.
White background, red letters.
Yeah.
It looked just like Record Bar.
So we stopped by in there, and they had a display set up where you could win tickets to see Daryl Hall and John Oates. And I was a huge fan at the time. Just loved them. And so me and my brother both entered. And a couple of days later, we get a call, and my brother had won tickets.
Mm-hmm.
I was mad. He wasn't going to let me go because there were 2 tickets. So my dad was going to take him. My brother wasn't really that big of a fan, but he won the tickets, so he wasn't going to let me go. So my dad went. They were sold out. My dad went to the Coliseum the day of the concert, stood in line, and once they got the stage set up, I guess they released some tickets, extra tickets, and they released them behind the stage.
Mm-hmm.
And so he bought 2 tickets, and we went that night. And the 2 tickets, the seats behind the stage were better than the ones that we'd won. They were like up in the bleachers. So me and my mom sat up in the bleachers, or the nosebleed or whatever, for the first band, which was general public, opened up. And then we met my dad and my brother later. They were sitting behind the stage, and they're like, you should come back here. There's 2 seats beside us. They're empty. If anybody comes in, somebody will leave. The whole time we sat back there right behind the stage, those 4 seats, nobody ever came up. Me and my brother both at one time, or separate times, reached out as John Oates was running up the riser at the back of the stage. Mm-hmm. Reached out. He handed both of us a guitar pick.
Really?
So when I saw John Oates a few years ago at Don Gibson Theater in Shelby, I took that pick with him. And after the show, I got to talk to him, and I told him the story about how he handed it to me like 28 years ago. I think is how long ago it was at the time. Mm-hmm. Something like that. Anyway, how he had handed it, and I said, I'm handing it back to you now. I said, but I'm not going to let you keep it. I want it back. I said, but can you autograph it? And he pulled out a silver Sharpie, and he wrote out like a J.O. on it, and handed it back to me.
That's cool.
So the fact that I saw them from my very first concert cemented my love for them. I still love them today. So I think it's really cool that you like them too.
Mm-hmm. I know there's so many people that think I like it to be sarcastic or ironic or whatever, just to be kind of a joke. And that's not true, man. I love them. Mm-hmm. I love those records.
Yeah.
People can say what they want, but Daryl Hall is one of the best soul singers out there.
Oh, yeah.
He
really is.
John Oates is an incredible songwriter, a damn good singer himself, But there is something that happens when those 2 guys sing together, you know. It's something that they can't reproduce on their own. Yeah. And I love it.
I know, like today, it's not quite that uncommon to find people that admit to liking them. Mm-hmm. But you don't find too many people that'll put on like the War Babies album on a Saturday afternoon or something. Right. So it's cool that, like I said, that you're so open about liking them. It makes me feel a little bit better about, because for a long time I was kind of embarrassed to admit that I liked them, because people made fun of them all the time, like 15, 20 years ago. It's like, I can't be a Hall & Oates fan and be in punk rock, and then I got to where I just didn't care anymore.
But you know what, man? It just kind of goes back to ANTiSEEN for a second, but that's the whole ANTiSEEN, the whole credo, man. Mm-hmm. That little thought you said you had back then, we were against all that. You know what? If you like Hall & Oates, goddamn, get a Hall & Oates tattoo, motherfucker. Yeah. It's like, we didn't care. Yeah. I think it's like you said a while ago, like when you first got into punk rock, for a minute, that's all you were all about. Same with us. Like when we were in high school, we figured out what this punk rock stuff was, and it got us. And then we looked around and we saw all these people we went to school with that we didn't really care for that much anyway, liking bands like AC/DC, which I love AC/DC now. Mm-hmm. I liked them at the time, but all of a sudden it was like, we can't like that shit anymore. Mm-hmm. So, but it wasn't too long before we were like listening to all the stuff that we listened to before. So we re-embraced it and actually expanded a little bit. It definitely created a us and them. Everybody that was into the old way was them. Yeah. Everyone who's new stuff was us. Yeah. It's just a rite of passage I think you go through when you get into this stuff, something brand new like that,
I never really kind of got that whole elitist attitude about it and stuff. Like even when people make fun of like, to mention Green Day, and not that we need to keep mentioning them or anything, but even back at the time, I actually like them. You know, they're not like my favorite band, but I can listen to them. But back at the time, a lot of people like just immediately started trashing them. People that got into punk rock because of Green Day. Mm-hmm. I'm like, I just don't understand that. That's the reason you're here. I get that they got popular and put out that one song that really blew them up and everybody turned on them. But
yeah.
That's just the wrong attitude to have. And I think a lot of those people have now come around to understand that. But I guess that is, like you said, that rite of passage. Mm-hmm. You kind of have to shun the popular stuff. And say, nah,
you always come back around. Yeah. And, you know, usually it's a cleansing thing. Maybe some of the stuff you thought you liked just because you were kind of going along with the crowd. Mm-hmm. And maybe you left it behind. But the stuff that you were really part of you always comes back.
Yeah. Because there's some stuff I listened to before I got into punk rock that I do not listen to now because it just wasn't really that much a part of me.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you know, it's trial. It's all trial and error. Like back then, you couldn't sample something before you bought it. You bought it basically on something you read, something your friend said, or you just thought the record cover looked cool.
The cover looked cool. That was a lot of records I bought. Hey, this looks like it's going to be good. Might hear one song on the radio from something and go, oh, I like that. Most of the time you buy those records, you'd end up hating. The ones that you bought based on the cover, a lot of times are the best records you ever bought. You're a fan of, you know, all kinds of music, but you're also a big fan of like Japanese monster movies. You mentioned wrestling a little while ago.
Yeah.
Planet of the Apes. Godzilla is a big one, I know. John Bowman told me I should ask you about the monster toys. I don't know.
All the Godzilla stuff?
Yeah, like he said something about some kids on base had some toys from...
Exactly, yeah, I know exactly what he's talking about. I can't believe I told him this, but from the time I was born until 1974, we lived in a mobile home.
Yeah.
And I was born in Panama City, Florida. We stayed on base there, and we would come back to North Carolina because that was my mom and dad's home. Mm-hmm. They both lived in New London. And our grandparents had land big enough that they could park the trailer on until Dad got his next assignment. He usually got a couple remote or overseas assignments, and we didn't go on those. Like he was stationed in Alaska, he was stationed in Iceland. Mm-hmm. We stayed in North Carolina for those. Then, we moved down to Mississippi, and that was the last move for us. We, and Baltimore, outside of Baltimore. But when we moved, when we were stationed down in Mississippi, man, that was, that would have been 70, a little bit of 72, all of 73, and most of 74.
Yeah.
And I consider that to be the time in my life that shaped my interest all the way until today.
Yeah.
Because that's when all that shit got a hook in me.
Yeah.
Alice, the Planet of the Apes movies had wrapped up and they had the TV series, and I've been going to see the Planet of the Apes movies in the theaters when they came out since 71.
Yeah.
Man, it's basically like 73 is the year where like there's this big hypodermic needle that says, "This is your DNA, kid," right into you, and now all of it is with me. Even stuff back then that I didn't really pay attention to because I figured that's either for grown-ups or adults or old people or girls or whatever. I mean, now it's just like, I don't know, if you look around close enough in this house, man, it looks like a pop culture collection from 73.
Yeah.
I mean, even the dishes my wife has, they're all from the 70s. Everything.
Yeah.
It's like that era, man, just defined it all. And one thing that I was into Ultraman.
Yeah.
Had been since the late 60s. It was made in 66, 67. But for some reason, that one show was exported from Japan to America and given the English voiceovers. And it played on syndicated TV, which back then meant either late night, early morning, or UHF.
Yeah, they were still showing it when I was a kid too. So I remember watching that.
And man, I just, because I loved Godzilla movies and stuff, and I thought that's all there was. And I see this, and I'm just like, man, I didn't care if they were stamping on cardboard boxes with flash pots in them. To me, it was fucking awesome.
Yeah.
So, I thought, Ultraman, I was all like Ultraman, and I like Godzilla. And Rodan, and King Ghidorah and all that stuff. But I met these kids. Their dad was stationed in Okinawa.
Yeah.
And man, they had all this stuff. Man, it was all Japanese shit. They had Godzilla shit, Ultraman shit. And then they turned me on to this new thing called Kamen Rider. He's on the motorcycle, looked like a bug. Had all these arch enemy monsters that wore big belts, looked like wrestling. And I was like, oh man, that was too much for my young mind, It's like, good gosh, it's hard for me to process what Tina Louise does to me on Gilligan's Island. Now I gotta mess with this. And, and I'm like, and of course, being friends, we traded stuff, and they gave me some Kamen Rider cards, a couple figures and stuff, and man, it's like I went the rest of my life. I never saw those guys again. We were stationed down there. They were stationed. I think they moved first. And I would eventually find that stuff again.
Yeah.
But man, I'm telling you, it wasn't until the early 90s when I actually saw with my eyes a episode of that show. It
was harder to find stuff like that before then, and then in the 90s, stuff like that was easier to.
But I'm telling you, it just blew my mind, man. It's like, because these kids had a lot of good shit. And man, I just loved all that lettering.
Yeah.
I loved everything about that, because even back then I was I had some kind of attraction to Japan, and I guess that came through Godzilla and Ultraman. I know that sounds silly because you're not going to go over there and see a giant monster. Well, I did, and I did see one, and I was happy as I could be. But I guess stuff just attracted me to that culture. Their whole, because I think in pop culture, I don't know so much they were behind as they were in lockstep with us. The bright colors, the bubble letters, all that kind of stuff that was going on. And I guess they could have been behind. That may have been here more so in the 60s, but in the early 70s, it was still prevalent.
Yeah.
And I loved all that imagery, all that Japanese lettering imagery, and
all of it was cool. The character designs were always cool. So just seeing toys of characters and not being able to see the cartoon, or not the cartoon, but the show, it's kind of mind-blowing. Like, I want this, but you can't have it.
And then you watch the shows, and they're playing with figures on the show, but they're about as tall, and you're like, where the hell? And when I finally made it over there, man, I had a pocket full of money.
I bet so. Took empty suitcases?
No, I didn't, and I wish I had.
Yeah.
But
I'd have worn the clothes on my back and then empty suitcases to bring stuff back.
Man, I'll tell you what happened though. I figured I'd find some stuff. Like here, if you go to one of them flea markets, you find someone that's got some Japanese something or another. I mean, bam, it's a done deal. Yeah. It's yours, whatever they're asking. Go over there now. It's not like here where you find a diamond in the rough. Over there, it's like, oh fuck, there's a mountain full of diamonds. Yeah. And I don't know which one to pull out. So I ended up not spending anywhere near as much as I'd planned. Yeah. And a lot of it had to do with logistics. Because if you took a bag over what you had as your carry-on and your check-in, it was $300. And that was part of the money I had in here. So I was just like, I bought some, don't get me wrong. Yeah. And the fact that weekend was my birthday, there was these people bringing me stuff to the shows, just giving me stuff, man. So, the night we did our last show, we're packing up in the hotel. I had to distribute everything into plastic bags, and I'm telling everybody, you got another carry-on. Yeah. They're not going to let us. Oh, you're going to carry it on. Yeah. And we're going to get it home. I hated doing that to them, but it's the only way it could happen. Yeah. We had a bunch of T-shirts too. So. Yeah. But yeah. Those early days of seeing those Kamen Rider toys, man, and those cards and those kites and planes and stuff like that, man, that just blew my mind. Yeah. Back then, too, I don't know if you remember these, but I would guarantee you and your brother had them. Mego action figures.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They were still going on when you guys were coming up. You know, Mego's back in business.
Yeah. Man.
Because, see, I thought that was the greatest thing in the world. Oh, shit. I put out 5 Planet of the Apes figures. Now you put out 5 more. Of course, 2 of them are the same figure with different colored clothes on, but hey, never mind. Give it here. The imagery that the band uses is an extension of me.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe some people would want it to be more, that are in the organization, would want it to be more rock and roll in general. But, man, I ain't doing that.
I think it's cool, like the design for that latest sticker that you put out and stuff like that. You kind of do what you want to do.
Mm-hmm. See, man, that doesn't. I don't like when you're when you gotta stay in this slot.
Mm-hmm.
When anything, if you tell me I gotta stay in this slot, well, I want to know what's going on over here in this slot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Now, the Clash were the first ones to teach me that, and I'll admit, at first, I did not understand. Got London Calling. But London Calling had enough of the Clash that I loved on it that they could do a few experiments and you forgive them for it.
Yeah.
But then I drove, and I just recently got my license, and I'd never driven in a snowstorm before. I drove from Albemarle to Concord, to the Music Mart. Me and a friend of mine called the Music Mart at Albemarle. Do you have Sandinista? No, we don't have that in. We sold the only one we had. So we called Concord. Yeah, man, we got 4 copies of it. But we're coming to get 2 of them. Yeah. All right. On the way up there, man, it snows. Like, first there's no snow on the ground, and all of a sudden it's like, it's everywhere, you know? And we're like, oh, shit. You know? Yep. I didn't know how to drive. I figured out real quick not to slam on brakes. Car going like that. Man, we finally got that record. Took the drive, that drive back home from Concord took about 2.5 hours. And, I finally sat down and listened to it. It starts with a Magnificent Seven, and I'm like, hey, this is a good, strong opener. I like this. A little too world music for me at this point, but, they're going to rock it out the next one. Yeah. Man, I was just like, oh, this is taking a long time for them to rock it out. I think you've got to side 5, Police on My Back. All right, now they're rocking it out. It's like, but see, I love that record now. Yeah. All 6 sides of it. But back then, man, I was really disappointed. But I understand it now. Yeah. And I don't think we have taken those big of leaps. But I don't like to do stuff. Like, one of the things that Joe used to say that used to get on my nerves, man. Show a new song. Man, we ain't never had nothing that went like that. That done like that. There's no contract that says we can't. Yeah. We're not indebted to anyone of the way we're supposed to be. And this next thing that's coming out, the split that we did with Before I Hang, our side of it is, it takes a little bit of a leap from the normal stuff. It's got a lot more like kind of atmospheric stuff. I don't think I'm doing it any justice trying to explain. I just wait till people hear it. But, I think people are going to enjoy it. Yeah. We sure enjoyed making it.
Yeah. You can use those influences and change it up a little bit. And that's like with Van Huskins. We don't like to be pigeonholed at all. We pretty much we play what we want to play. And sometimes it comes off a little bit more metal, or sometimes it comes off a little bit more punk, or maybe a little bit of classic rock here and there. But, even down to like, we don't even have a logo. We put out different logos with everything. And maybe that's to our detriment, because I know a lot of times the band gets associated with the logo. But, we want to have fun with it. We want to be able to do what we want to do, and we want to be able to do different stuff and not be tied to, say, a logo or a certain style of sound. So I totally get that mindset.
Yeah. That's why we picked the most basic block letters for our logo that, you could have.
And then you can use that with anything.
Yeah. Yeah, that font looks good within. Yeah.
But another thing I want to talk about just a little bit, and I know you talked about this some too, probably Repo Cheapo.
Mama used to say to me, run and get me a hickory. Tried to put me back in line. I still need that after all this time. Hey, why you gotta be? Why you gotta be? Why you gotta be so goddamn? Why you gotta be? Why you gotta be? Why you gotta be so
So like I said earlier, Repo was really big, very big influence on me and my musical taste. And Repo's my favorite record store. We got other cool record stores in Charlotte. I won't diss any other record stores in Charlotte because they're great. But Repo's always going to be my favorite just because Jimmy was always so nice to me when I came in there. I mean, there was a time I went in there and he showed me all the commercials. He had them on VHS. He stuck them in. And we sat there for 10 minutes and watched all the commercials. Just the selection there was great. Prices were always great. Still are, you know. Everything's more expensive now. I look back at I still got price stickers on all old records, and I'll pull Raw Power out. $4 price sticker on it.
I was going to say,
you can't find that for less than $50 these days.
No way. You remember how used records would fluctuate between $3 and $4.50?
I got Black Flag records that have, back in the 90s, $3.25.
Yeah.
It's crazy though.
Yeah, those days are over.
Yeah, they're way over. Now when you find something like that, I mean, I look for deals when I go record shopping. And I don't mind if a record cover is a little bit rough looking or if the record itself might have a few scratches on it. I'll rescue vinyl like that and listen to it all day long. But I'm not going to spend $50 on a record. It's impossible. Even something brand new, 180 gram vinyl, I ain't spending $50 on that.
Yeah. But
so Repo was where I guess I first met you, even though we were never friends back then. We're acquaintances now. We're not good friends or anything. It's where I met you. It's where I met Jimmy. It's where I met Joe. It helped shape my love of punk rock. So I love Repo. But how did Repo Cheapo get started? Tell me a little bit about that because I love that store. I absolutely love that store and hate it when it shut down.
Jimmy had the main store was on Central. Then he had the second one over on Tyvola.
Yeah, one right down the road here.
Yeah, right over there. Yeah. And that was also the site of the Yellow Rose where we used to play. He wanted another one that his stores were so full of stuff that he couldn't deal in stuff like T-shirts and posters and unless he opened up another place. And plus, he wanted to display a lot of his collection.
Yeah. That was what was so cool about that store was the fact that y'all had all that different stuff.
And, so Jimmy liked hiring his friends. And me and Joe, and especially Jeff Young, had really become great friends with Jimmy. So he kind of opened that third store, and for lack of a better way of saying it, for me.
Yeah.
And, we played there. We had in-stores there.
Yeah, those pictures, they're really blurry. And I attribute that partially because, back then you never really knew what you were going to get when you took the film to get it developed. I maybe didn't have the right film for the lights, or also kind of attribute to the fact that it was a crazy night. And I'm sure that I was getting knocked around a lot while I was taking those pictures.
Yeah, it was kind of wild in there, man. And I'm just glad. You know what? I'm real glad to see these because you can see the setup of the place. And it was definitely different.
Yeah, like I said, you can have those too. And you can have these too. These are just, I think all these are from the 10th anniversary show. And there's a lot in there. They're real similar to each other, but there's a few really good ones in there.
Okay. But yeah, man, Repo has always been our home base, and I don't know if you heard me talk about it on Break On Through, but there's always these things we call heel turns from wrestling where you kind of don't speak or you speak ill of each other for a while. And that happened with us and Jimmy for a little bit. But, when everything gets fixed and everything's back, man, it's like that time never happened.
Yeah, exactly.
I love that guy.
Yeah.
He's done more for me than just about anybody I can think of.
Probably the biggest ANTiSEEN fan I know, personally. There may be bigger ones out there, but they're probably hard to find.
One thing I can thank him for is he keeps my chops up with my art because he's the only one I do consistent art for anymore. Yeah. And, man, I don't know if I didn't have that. I don't know if I would have done anything anymore.
I love those Repo ads from back in the day.
Oh, man, we used to get away with so much, man.
It was like we'd get Creative Loafing just to see the next Repo ad.
There was one time we actually did a comic strip. You remember that one?
Yep. The whole story, it was like a story that unfolded over several
issues. Yeah.
Yeah. We used to, I love that.
Man, Jimmy still got all the original art from those things.
Yeah, I bet so.
One day we sat and looked at them. We're just like going, well, we couldn't have done this one today. Couldn't do this one today. There was about a dozen of them. We're just like, man, that would not float now.
One of these days, I think I want to actually sit down and talk to Jimmy. I think he'd be good to have on the podcast.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd do like a full 2-hour episode with him or hour and a half, but do a little quick 30-minute record store.
He can tell some stories, man.
I'm sure he's got plenty of stories. I remember one time that there was this in Creative Loafing, they had the blotter or whatever they called it. And there was the one with the record store owner that jumped in the car and pistol whipped the guy. And we read that. It's like, that's Jimmy Repo. And when we were at the store the next weekend, we asked him. He's like, yeah, that was me.
Man, oh shit! There's a lot of stories like that.
Yeah. So I don't know. I've kind of covered pretty much everything here. We talked about Heretics. We've briefly talked about your other projects and ANTiSEEN. We don't really, like I said, you talk about that stuff a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't really think if there's anything else that I had to ask. Was there anything else that you wanted to talk about? Because we'll get around and we'll sort of wrap up talking about ANTiSEEN a little bit more.
No, man. I mean, just, like we touched on all those subjects, and it all kind of came back around to ANTiSEEN eventually because it's all kind of intertwined. Yeah.
And one thing I do want to ask about ANTiSEEN or ANTiSEEN was the name. It's said both. I think I've heard you say it both ways.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
I believe the song, it says ANTiSEEN in the song instead of ANTiSEEN. But I've always said ANTiSEEN. Mm-hmm. There's not an official way to say it, is there?
No. Like you're right. I've probably said it both ways.
This is like, I think there's bands like Anti-Flag that some people call Anti-Flag. And I'm trying to think of a couple of other ones. Anti-Nowhere League.
Anti-Nowhere League.
It's just a matter of how you say that.
Yeah, how you say anti.
Yeah.
Anti or anti. Man, for the longest time, like we never saw the Ramones on anything. Mm-hmm. We didn't know how they looked. I mean, we just saw pictures.
Yeah. We
never saw no live videos of them and stuff. And man, for years, what we thought they were called?
What's that?
The Ramones.
The Ramones, yeah.
I think we were listening one night on one of those college radio stations from Davidson. Mm-hmm. And they said the Ramones. And I was like, that's how you say that.
Yeah. But I think it's interesting that like me and Alex can have a conversation talking about your band, and I'll be saying it one way and Alex will say it the other way. And it's just, nobody bats an eye at it because it's accepted.
Yeah. Yep.
So I think that's kind of cool.
And people have asked, well, how's it said? And I go, how do you say it?
Yeah.
I say it this way. Well, that's the way it's said. Yeah. And I didn't even think about that when we named the group that. Mm-hmm. It just turned out that way. And that's just something I've never bothered to correct anyone on because I kind of like hearing it the different ways.
I think when you grow up in the South, you get used to people saying things different ways anyway. That's just one of the things in this area, not because of the transplants, but from people that are from the South. Mm-hmm. Everybody from the South has different degrees of accents and different ways of saying things based on how they were brought up and what the household they lived in.
Yep.
And you just get used to it so much that you just don't even question it. Whereas somebody from, like, I know when I talk to people from other places, California or New York, sometimes they go, man, you got a real bad Southern accent. I'm like, yeah, I got a Southern accent, but so if you live in the South, man, you wouldn't even notice like accents anymore because everybody sounds so vastly different. Mm-hmm. It's one of those things.
Speaking of Southern accents, my wife and I can listen to Southern accents pretty much and tell what area they're from.
Yeah. You can do that from around here, even in this area. Yep. What part of what county and around Charlotte? Who are you from? Based on your accent.
Yep. Because to me, you sound a lot like Bowman.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know y'all ain't from the same town. You're from the same region.
Yeah, we're both from Cleveland County. Mm-hmm. So you mentioned Japan a while ago. I know that was one of your big goals. You guys have played Germany, you played Japan. Is there anywhere else you want to play, or are you looking just to go back to Japan someday?
Man, I would love to go back to Japan. I don't know how that's going to unfold.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I guess once all this is all over, we see how the world's going to be as far as stuff.
Okay. We have one more for you. But we're going to bring some new friends of ours up on stage to help us with it.
おい、ポーゴ、用意周到だな、お前。なんか今、歌詞カードみたいなの持ってたよな。
聞いてないですよ、本当。本当ね。
聞いてなくてそんなもの持ってこれんのか？
聞いてないですよ、本当。Like I've been trying to say. Well,
love to go to Australia.
Yeah.
Man, we've been as a second foreign country to ever reach out to us. We've got records that were released for Australia only.
Yeah.
But we've never had a booking agent want to bring us down.
I know when Eat More Possum came out, it was on Zuma Records out of Australia. My copies.
Zuma was out of Germany.
Oh, okay. No, I'm thinking of Dog Meat. Yeah, on Noise for
Dog
Second
Meat,
Noise. That's what I'm thinking.
That's Noise for Second Noise. They also did the My God Could Beat Up Your God single, the Groin Thunder compilation of the Trogs, and I think that's all we did on Dog Meat. But I did the Dog Meat logo.
Yeah.
Yeah, I need to start drawing again.
You've done a lot of stuff, just logos, 7-inch covers.
Man, that cartoon I did of Gigi has kind of become the Gigi Allen logo.
Oh yeah.
Kind of unofficially, I guess.
So what's next for ANTiSEEN? You got single that just came out, the
Jerry A.
live stream's coming up on the 25th.
Live stream on the 25th.
You mentioned the split or the
split 10-inch record with Before I Hang.
Yeah.
A new live LP, which will be the audio from that live broadcast we did on Facebook back in June.
Yeah.
But it's gonna be pressed on vinyl, and it's also gonna come with a DVD. And then we got the live broadcast on the 25th. And we're still in the process of writing new stuff, and me and Mark Rainey from TKO are always working on the next reissue.
Yeah.
And the next reissue is going to be Here to Ruin Your Groove.
Okay. Yeah, I like the fact that you're doing that too. So, like, I picked up the Drastic EP, the reissue of that, even though I've got the original one. I was like, I got to get this.
I try to make it to where there's something.
There's some extra stuff on there.
Something that makes you want to have to buy it again. But, sometimes we're not always successful. But, I've said before, sometimes it's like I play in two ANTiSEENs. Mm-hmm. The one that's moving forward and the one that we have to go back.
Yeah. That's cool that you're keeping that legacy alive, too. Because there's people out there that want it. Mm-hmm. People out there that have just discovered you that can't get it or don't want to pay collector's prices for it. Mm-hmm. And so it's cool that you can put it back out there and keep all that stuff alive, especially, the memory of Joe as well. I still like to hear all that stuff.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We are also probably, as the year comes to an end, we're going to aggressively pursue doing some kind of crowdfund thing, GoFundMe, and we're going to raise the money to buy a grave plot for Jeff and Joe.
Yeah.
Okay. And get them a gravestone.
I'll help promote that too by sharing those links and stuff.
And we'll just bury their ashes there and in their town, Lenore. Mm-hmm. So everybody, people coming either this side of the country or coming to the United States in general. If everyone wanted to make a pilgrimage to go pay their respects, there'll be a place to do that.
Yeah. So. But you see yourself going on for a 40-year anniversary show, big 40-year anniversary show in a few years? See yourself going on that long, hopefully?
I hope we are able to do a live and in-person 40-year anniversary show.
Yeah, I think hopefully by then. I mean, everything remains to be seen. But I'm real optimistic that sometime middle of next year things will start getting back to normal.
I think you put a phrase out that you respect this thing. I'm not afraid of it, and I don't know that life had to come to a complete halt, but I don't know. I'm at that point where I don't want to mess around with something, because for me, like, if I pass it on to my mom, I'd never forgive myself. Right.
And it's just like for that reason alone, I've just got to play by the rules for right now.
We've never dealt with this.
Yeah.
Ever. I mean, you can talk about 1916, 17, whatever it is, 19, but they didn't shut the whole country down. Yeah, and they didn't have this type of communication.
Yeah.
To where you can say it now, and the whole world hears it within 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's hard to determine what would have been the best thing or what would have been the best way to go about it.
Yeah, I agree with that for sure. The way I look at it is it don't matter. There's really nothing you can do right now. Because like I said, your hands are kind of tied even if you want to try to do something by that public perception.
And man, look, this is by no way trying to draw a line and make somebody pick a side. But this is truth. Because I've studied, not an official study, but I've observed enough human nature in my almost 60 years of life. And I'm telling you right now, if they came out today and said, social distancing, forget it, mask, forget it. This thing is whipped. It's gone. About a third of the population is not going to let it go.
I believe you're probably right on that.
Yeah.
I believe that at least a percentage of the population for sure is always going to always see them in the mask, especially like at winter times and stuff like that.
I mean, I always took precautions in flu season. I mean, I've never wore a mask.
And that's the way I look at it. When this all started, at one point I was like, why should I stop going to shows? Because flu season never slows me down. But, I don't want to get into all of whether it's worse than the flu or all that. But, still, there was a lot of me that was like, why? I'm careful now. I don't get the flu already. I must wash my hands enough and all that jive now. So, like I said, we don't make the rules at this point. We're just playing by them because public perception could be a bitch sometimes.
Like, okay, well, you want to do this. Well, guess what? You're not able.
Yeah.
That's how it is.
Yeah. So I'm optimistic and hopeful that when this is all over, there's still going to be enough people that want to go out that we'll get to have some more fun before it's all.
I mean, man, I've already had Mick from Ground Zero ask us about playing. Yeah, man, I wanted to be one of the first bands to go out and play, but I didn't want it to be like you were talking about. Hey, here we are. We're playing a show.
Yeah.
I'm just like, I don't expect anyone to give a shit, especially when they're scared to death.
Yeah. It's just that fine line you got to try to walk.
And I'm just like, I want to go back to playing. I'll play Ground Zero again. It's like I said, I just don't think the mindset is there yet with enough of the population to where it makes any difference.
Yeah. And I don't want to go out there and half-ass it either. Yeah. Because like you were talking about with the live streams, at first I thought, man, we can live stream and practice. A lot of people were doing it. I was like, watching them going, no, I don't want to do that because it sounds like crap. So we did do one from the Milestone, and it sounded pretty good. I still think it could have been better if it had set up a little bit better, but it was good enough for us, and that was fine. But I don't intend to do another one unless I know it's going to be right. Because it's just not no point in it. We don't have this big name to protect or anything, but I don't want to practice for everybody else. I want them to see a show. So there's no point in half-assing it. And if you even try to play a show right now, I don't care if only 10 people show up, because that's kind of par for the course here in Charlotte for bands like us. I also don't want to go out there and be like thinking, I wonder how many people would have been here if they could have been here. And just feeling like it's like everybody's being too cautious, and it takes all the fun out of it. So until it's going to be fun again, I'm just like, let's do what we can to stay a band, write new songs, and then hopefully on the other side we can come out. People will appreciate it maybe a little bit more than they did in the past.
Well, man, I'll tell you this. When we did the broadcast, I told the guys, and everyone thought it was going to be kind of awkward. I didn't find it to be very awkward at all, really. Because I told them, I said, I'm not going to make you nervous or anything, but we could potentially, when this thing goes on, we could potentially be playing to the biggest crowd we've ever played to. I don't know if that eases anybody's nerves, but I just see, we lit up the entire front with white light so that it wouldn't go dark, and so that's all I could see.
Yeah,
and I just pretended that it was the biggest crowd we ever played to.
Yeah,
and that's why I fucked up. I was more concerned with putting on a show than getting every cue right.
I think that's the way to do it. Just play it like you were playing an actual show. Don't do anything different. Do it just like you would if you had a crowd in front of you. And it's a little awkward because you don't have that feedback, that immediate feedback.
But see, that's why we didn't want to stop.
We said, right through it.
Let's just go right through it, and you won't hear the deafening silence when we stop.
Because we did it. We stopped between all our songs. And luckily, when we did it at the Milestone, there were a few other bands, including Queen City Rejects. So there were about, I'd say maybe 15 people in the Milestone all spread out. So there was a little bit of, again, not much unlike a regular Van Husken show where there's 15 people in the crowd. So.
Oh man, yeah, we could do a whole show on that whole state of affairs too.
Yeah, it gets brought up on the podcast quite a bit. So much so that I cut out a lot of it these days whenever I talk to bands about it, because it's almost like beating a dead horse. But it's again, I've said it so many times, and a lot of this will get cut out. I mean, I'm going to use some of the COVID stuff that we talked about because I think that's really interesting, and that's how we feel. But it's like I say, people have so many distractions right here. Even when they're at a show, a lot of times they're right here. So just get them off the couch to come to a show sometimes. That phone in their hand, they're watching Netflix on it, or listening to music, or talking to, or just doing nothing, mindlessly scrolling through Facebook.
Man, I'll tell you this. Before you come over, remember I was telling you I was trying to get cleaned up?
Mm-hmm.
I had so many distractions, man. I get on there. What's this? Oh, what?
Yeah.
Okay. And I was like, 20 minutes have passed. Like, goddamn, I'll never get this done. You know, I mean, I didn't get it done as good as I'd like to. Like I said, I'd like to have all that stuff rolled out so I could turn the lights on it and let you see it, you know, in its proper display mode. But
it's just too easy to get distracted these days. And you have so many options, too. I mean, it's not just the fact that it's a distraction. You've got a movie theater on the palm of your hand. You've got a jukebox in the palm of your hand. You've got, you know, a line to the whole world in the palm of your hand.
Mm-hmm.
And takes the focus away from a lot of it. And like I said, you'll be playing a show and half the people in the crowd are looking at their phone. And,
yeah, I hate that.
Yeah. I mean, and I'm guilty of pulling my phone out too. Usually what I do is I'll pull my phone out, try to take 1 or 2 quick pictures and then put it back in my pocket and ignore it the rest of the time. But there's been times when all of a sudden I've gotten a notification. I've been like, oh, what is this? You know, just to make sure it's not a text. It's something important, my daughter or something like that. Mm-hmm. And the next thing I know, like 5 minutes has passed and I'm still looking at it. Like, what the fuck? Put it back in my pocket. It's like, I hate it, but it's also like a necessity.
Yeah. It's definitely addictive, I think.
Yeah, I think it certainly is. There's times when I know I spend way too much time on it. But again, like I said, these days just getting motivated is hard, and then you get sucked into that, catching up with the news of the day, or just what your friends are doing, or I got to respond to these emails. Then you start listening to music. One thing leads to another, and the next thing you know, an hour and a half passes. Man, I was supposed to start working on that podcast. What am I doing?
People don't like to come around. You're only happy when your world is crumbling down. People only like you when you're sad. So their own shitty life don't look so bad. People like to laugh when you cry. They like to see you fail when they don't even try. People like to point out when you're wrong and do the same thing themselves all day long.
Yeah, a long time ago, or not too long ago, I used to, my excuse for things is, man, I got on YouTube, and it was over then.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, I came home at 2:30, I started on YouTube, next thing I know, it's dark out, and I'm like, God, I haven't eaten.
Yeah, I don't know how many times I went down that midnight special rabbit hole on YouTube. Some great performances on there. Mm-hmm. It's just like, you know, and even that, like, you start watching that, and the next thing you know, you're watching a commercial from Japan, and it's 5 hours have passed. It's like, how did I get here?
Yeah. You know, speaking of midnight special, I wonder how they got such great performances out of everyone.
Yeah, because there are. I mean, it's everything I've ever watched from that. It's just fantastic.
I mean, I figured there would have been some hit or misses somewhere along the line, but it seems like everyone did really well.
Yeah. Very professional musicians, maybe a little bit of studio magic.
I mean, I just wonder if they recorded more than they showed us.
Yeah, like they recorded several times.
And they just picked the best ones.
It's possible.
You know, of course, they're going to pick the hit.
Yeah, that's always possible.
Because, man, I think Aerosmith as a band was only on it one time. Mm-hmm. But Steven Tyler was on it as a host with Ted Nugent one time. That's when they introduced AC/DC to America, basically.
Yeah. Old Grey Whistle Test. That's another good one. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of really good stuff in that.
You ever hear the story about that English dude, Whispering Bill or whatever his name is?
I think so.
The DJ on there? He hated punk.
Oh, really?
Hated it. Hated every bit of it. He didn't want nothing. It was still his show and all, but he kind of said, I'm not hosting. And that's when they got different hosts.
Yeah.
And stuff on there, yeah. I think he liked the Police and stuff like that, but man.
Go beyond that. And it's
Pistols, Ramones in it. Garbage.
Yeah. There's some people that still feel that way.
Yeah, they do.
I think all those bands get a lot more respect now, even from people that don't really get punk rock. Do understand why they're important.
Sometimes it's really hard to fathom how big the Clash actually got.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they got pretty big. Yeah. Huge. Like Wimbledon? Or Wembley Stadium?
Wembley. Yeah. Headlined it, right? Yeah. No, it was The Who. They were playing with The Who.
Oh, yeah.
But I think they were just as much a draw as they were.
Yeah, they were.
Especially at that point.
Yeah.
And they still kept that ethos of if our fans want to come back and talk to us, we're going to talk to them.
Yeah, that's awesome.
See, I always admired that.
Yeah.
I do that.
Yeah. You make yourself very available.
Yeah, I don't like to talk before the shows, but I'll talk after.
Yeah.
You know, I can see how some fans will irritate you because some of them do not have a filter, a social filter, knowing when, okay, I've worn this out now. Some of them don't have that.
Yeah. But that's another one of those things, like I said, when I first met you, it's something that stuck with me is the fact that you took the time and you still do that today. Even it's like when you did the 35th anniversary show, you even set up an additional night just to hang out and talk. Mm-hmm. And I just think that's awesome. That, you have that ethos about you and that you are a very fan friendly band.
I just know how much every single time that it happened to me and what it meant to me.
Yeah.
And it's stuff I carry around as fond memories for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And the ones where they were assholes also. Yeah.
Like I said, if I'd have met you that day and it would have been a different story, we wouldn't be sitting here having this conversation. I might not even be into punk rock anymore. I might have been turned off on it.
You might have said, fuck this punk bands.
But you were nice and signed the cassette, talked to me for a minute, and then we came and saw your band, and that was it. It was, this is what we're doing. We're going to be a punk rock band. Style and Johnny Appleseeds, Popes on Dope, all that. It was because of you. I could have stopped a long time ago, but I saw that somebody like me from a small town in North Carolina can play music and people can come and listen to it and have a good time and enjoy it. And so that's what I wanted to do. Yeah. And it took us a while before we got good at it. I remember when we first started playing with Style and Johnny Appleseeds, especially, we sent Penny a cassette and she wrote back to us, or I don't know if we talked to her at the club or something. She basically said, you guys aren't ready, but keep up the good work. And that was when we found Heretics. We played at Heretics. So it was like, I love Penny to death, and I love, everything she did for me, because that was when I discovered the Milestones, when she was running it. But that didn't deter me. It's like, I'm still going to do this, and I'll find a place to do it.
Yeah.
And we found our way.
Yeah. You got to.
Yeah. I'm just seeing somebody, like I said, somebody like me was enough of a motivator for me to go, yes, this is it.
There's no too many people that, if they would have encountered 1/4 of the resistance we did, they would have gave up.
Yeah.
First time.
I'm glad you persevered and still doing it today. That's awesome.
And that's where people say we're so angry or so mean and all this. Man, it's like, it's towards stuff like that. We've been accused of so much, and it's just by people who don't know us.
Yeah.
Who don't get us. Nothing can stick, because we've had songs that are peppered with this far right stuff and peppered with far left stuff.
Yep.
And where are we on that? People demand to know, where are you on these issues right now? You know what I say? I'm right here.
Yeah. I like that answer. That's awesome. Well, I think that's probably a good enough stuff to record that I've got recorded. And I think I've already got a good ending for it and everything. I kind of put the episode together in my head and I start editing it in my head while we're doing it.
Yeah, I understand that.
I think that's going to be a good episode. And I think down the road, we'd like to talk to you again and get some of those bookstore stories.
Anytime, man. And anytime you would ever want to talk, man, somebody I would like to get to open up more is Barry.
I was thinking, because I do want to get Russ and I want to get Malcolm, and I was thinking that I want to get Barry too if he'd be willing to do it, because he just seems like the kind that would be like, I don't really have anything important to say.
Yeah, that's exactly what he is. And he says he can't remember stuff.
Yeah.
Like yesterday in practice, I always keep a copy of our book there because it's got lyrics in it, and I can't. Man, we're doing some songs on this broadcast that if you just said, all right, sing them now, I don't know one of the fucking words.
Yeah.
And I had to relearn it. Mm-hmm. But I was just looking through it. I said, Barry, come here, man. I said, this right here, you don't remember this? He's like, no, not really. And he go, wait a minute, was that on stage at Tabloids? I went, close. It was on stage at Tremont.
Yeah.
He's like, well, man, he says, it's not that I don't, like it just goes out of my brain. It's just like I don't focus on it. Yeah. He's like, he said, probably when I was getting that picture made, I was thinking about what we had coming up next, or what I had to do next. Like, maybe I got to go pull the van around and back up to the dock or something, And I said, well, yeah, I understand that. Mm-hmm. I said, I would say 70% of the time I can look at a picture taken from anywhere, anytime, and I can tell you where it was. Yeah. So I have a problem with years sometimes.
Yeah, I get that totally.
But I can give you generally. It's amazing what detail that can make me remember something. Yeah. And like a lot of times, if they're like, okay, where's this picture from? Do you know where this was taken from? All I got to do is see what t-shirt I was wearing. Yeah. Okay, I hadn't had that shirt in about 20 years, so it was probably, like Charleston or something. That kind of shit. Yeah. Seems silly, but it's the way it is.
I'm the same way. Like, you show me pictures of heretics. All I got to do is look for that Doors flag hanging up in the rafters. I'm like, that's heretics. There's just certain little details about different places.
I had forgotten all about that until you just mentioned it. I saw it, and then you mentioned it. There's always a fucking Doors flag up when people are playing. I didn't think about it that much back then. I guess it wasn't that important.
I guess I've just seen it in so many pictures because I've got pictures of like my bands from back then too, and it's like always in the background. There's just little details about clubs like that. Milestone's pretty easily recognizable for me. Of course, like I said, that's home for me.
Well, man, the one thing about Milestone is like that back area behind the stage went through a lot of drastic changes. I remember when Bill put up that fucking green shag carpet. Yeah. And I remember when DOA came in there and spray painted their damn name on it. I was like, God damn.
Yeah, I bet you've got a lot of great stories from that time too. Yeah. I thought that the Black Flag show was your first one there. So I remember my first night going there. Like I said, the week before we went out there just to check the place out. And then we saw Tonka. They were a band from Rock Hill. And Plaid Retina and Cerebellum. Cerebellum, I think, was from Raleigh. Plaid Retina's from California. But it was like, I was hooked. Just this club. There weren't even that many people out there.
Didn't Plaid Retina, some form of that, morph into Operation Ivy? Or am I wrong?
I am not sure about that.
That might not be the case.
I don't think so. But I think they were from around the same scene. Mm-hmm. But like, I was hooked. And then I was out there every weekend after that. When I turned 18, I was out there every Friday and Saturday night. It was Sundays for the longest time because that was all we could really do. I think it was 18 and up. Other than that, it was all ages on Sundays, from 6 to 9 or whatever. It was the place to go, no matter who was playing. Like you said, no matter who was playing, that's where we were.
Well, I'm glad that tradition went on a little longer than what we did, and I don't guess
it probably doesn't happen too much these days.
No, not at all. My wife and I were talking about it, and it's just like, we came from this time and all this that where like if us 30 people are there and we all know each other, maybe we're not friends, but we know that guy, we know that girl. Yeah. But there's someone there that we don't know. We always made it our business to introduce ourselves because you wanted to know everybody that was into the same stuff you were. Yeah.
Yeah, I met so many cool people there and friendships that have lasted years. So many great things started at Milestone. This has been a Gabba Gabba Hunt media production.
And one thing that this music community has always been from the start I've never known it to be any other way. It was always all-inclusive.
Yeah.
Before that became a mantra, and before that became a requirement.
Yeah.
It always was. It was just naturally that way. It was completely organic.
Yeah.
I don't know, man.